Welcome to the Women's Money Wisdom Podcast. I'm Melissa Joy, a certified financial planner and the founder of Pearl Planning. My goal is to help you streamline and organize your finances, navigate big money decisions with confidence, and be strategic in order to grow your wealth. As a woman, you work hard for your money, and I'm here to help you make the most of it. Now, let's get into the show. Have you looked at the cost of college and thought about saving for college for your kids and just thought, why even start? It is just too expensive, too complicated. I've got too much going on. Well, today I'm joined by my colleagues, Lucy Valandra and Alexa Kane. We are all certified financial planners, and we have all probably had the same thought. In fact, I'll spend some time talking about how we feel and what we're doing when it comes to college savings. Lucy and Alexa recently recorded a podcast that was all about college savings techniques from a financial planner perspective that had a built-in target audience of people like you. And so whether you're a parent or grandparent or someone who's saving for college to pay for it yourself, I think this episode will be a great companion to that webinar where we can hear and see some real life examples of what college savings is like. And then go to our YouTube site, pearlplan.com, Pearl Planning on YouTube, and you'll be able to also see a replay of the webinar, which is available now. We'll make sure to have the link in the show notes as well. And while you're there, if you like and subscribe, we love that too. Lucy, Alexa, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Excited to be back.
Yeah, it's been a while, and we work together shoulder to shoulder every day, so we've got to do this more often.
Yes.
Well, we each have kids at a different kind of stage of life. And at the end of the episode, just giving you a heads up, we're going to talk about what you're doing yourself. But first, I'm going to allow each of you to kind of introduce yourselves, starting with Lucy, and give us the perspective of where you're at in your parenting journey.
So like Melissa said, my name is Lucy Valandra. I'm a certified financial planner and the newest member of the Pearl Planning team, having joined this spring.
Yay!
I'm very happy to be here. This spring, my husband and I also welcomed twin boys into our family. They are now 5 months old. So we hit the ground running with savings. But it's been a wild ride of reshuffling where we lived and joining a new firm, as well as welcoming these two wonderful bundles of joy into our lives.
And then Alexa, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I have been at Pearl almost 4 years. Probably next week we'll hit the milestone.
Celebrate!
Crazy. I have a 6-year-old and 2-year-old boys, and then we'll be welcoming a little girl in November, so extra chaotic over here as well. So we're definitely in the thick of it. And then, Melissa's on that next phase with the little bit older kids, and one starting to make some money, so that's...
Make and spend. That's what's happening with that one. But I have a 5th grader who's 11 and a kid who my son will be a sophomore. So we're thinking about college now, or, what that means for him. And we've been thinking about this college savings in a theoretical perspective for a long time. I think all of us use 529 accounts, correct?
Yeah.
And Alexa, you're kind of our 529 guru, like it or not, at the office. So I'm going to let you give us an overview for our audience who may have heard of, hey, there's some numbers that are associated with college savings. I can't quite remember what they are. Tell us what 529 plans are.
Yeah, 529 plans are really great, easy ways to save for college. Taxes are another love language for me, and the 529s are my favorite. Triple tax advantage for most people. Michigan has a state tax deduction available, and then there's 30 states that offer some sort of credit or deduction on contributions. So in most cases, there is that advantage right away, and then the accounts grow tax deferred, so any growth inside of there. There's no tax implications while it's in the 529 account. So getting money in early and often allows it to really just grow and accelerate. And then when you go to take the money out, if it's for a qualified expense, there's no tax implications on that. So a tax break on the beginning, no taxes in the middle, and no taxes at the end. It just really is very powerful. And the qualifying expenses for 529s has really expanded. So it's room and board, not only at four-year schools, there's trade schools, certified apprenticeship programs. You can also use it for K through 12 school if it's private school tuition that you've decided to pursue. And then also $10,000 can be used to pay down student loans on the other side. So there's a lot in there, books, room and board. There's just so many things. And then a lot of flexibility. If one child decides not to go to school, you can change the beneficiary to another child. There are just so many advantages there, and really flexible, because with the 6-year-old and a 2-year-old, it's kind of a toss up of what they'll end up doing down the road. But just knowing that, hey, maybe it's baby number 3 that will end up using all all the 529. But lots of great tax incentives, and then just the power of saving over time is also great there.
I also think it's under discussed that just having that account that's like really locked into college savings is a great like psychological behavioral barrier to accidentally spending money on something else. So I know some people are like, I just want to have an investment account, taxable account, or sometimes a Roth account. They've gone on a Reddit thread, they've listened on TikTok, and they're like, 529s, they're not cool. You can't trade a bunch in them, which is actually, I think, a feature, not a bug. But, having that like real, hey, this money is for college, can help to protect it so that you don't forget about it or use it for something else.
Yeah, the mental accounting is definitely real there. And I love the kind of set it and forget it features of the 529 of just, monthly contributions can really add up. And having something like a target date fund where it starts off as, a more aggressive mixture of stocks and bonds. And as the kid gets closer to that target age of starting college, it's getting more and more conservative as time goes on. So it's a great kind of set it and forget it tool.
Yeah, one of the clunkier functions of 529s, it was created through this legislation. It's pretty clear to me with a political science background that there was a lot of lobbying going on by asset management companies, because basically what happens is every state has a 529. In fact, most of them have a couple at least. Each one is just tied to one company. So using the state of Michigan, and we just use Michigan because we're here, but we advise clients all over the country about college savings. It's TIA and Nuveen, which are actually the same company. And there's one set that's sold by an advisor. And so the advisor gets compensated on that. And there's another that's just direct at the state. And you do more of the lifting, but you pay less. And frankly, on 529s, we tend to like kind of send you to the state site because there's not a lot of fanciness. And if you're working with us, our advice on that education is paid for with our overall financial and planning engagement, and it's not the best place to be paying for investment management. So one of the things that I hear all the time is like, and it stops people from starting, is, well, I'm not sure if my kid is going to spend the money, so what do I do about that? Like, that is a big hurdle, and these types of hurdles then create indecision and missed opportunities, and sometimes in our view. Lucy, what do you say? What kind of conversations do you have when there's that concern about overfunding?
Yeah, I actually hear this a lot. And there is new legislation that kind of has rocked the boat a little bit with this and makes the 529 a no-brainer. which is you can now take up to $35,000 that's been in the 529 and convert that into a Roth IRA for that beneficiary. So that, you know, might not sound like a lot of money, but it really is to, you know, launch into starting early with retirement savings. And the Roth is a great tool that can also be used for a first-time home purchase and other things. And like Alexa was saying earlier, you can always also change the beneficiary on the 529 account, whether that be to another sibling, to yourself if you want to go back for further education, or to a niece and nephew or future generations. So there's a lot of flexibility within the 529, both before and after. You know, if scholarships are something that is on the table, you can actually take the money out from the 529, as well as, like Alexa said, with student loans. There's a $10,000 lifetime limit that can be used to pay for student loans. And graduate school too. People forget that these funds can be used, you know, for higher education beyond, you know, your typical 4-year college.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to, in essence, repatriate the money. It sits outside of your estate if estate taxes ever change. I mean, this is relevant if you have more than north of 10 or $20 million today, but someday that kind of level may be lower. I mean, I think when you hit those roadblocks, this is where a financial planner comes in, because we both have the experience. Like, I know Alexa and I have worked with people who were receiving scholarships in grad school, so we were getting money out penalty free that matched the scholarships, for example. Or something that's underappreciated is if your kid has an apartment at school, they can go and take the funds that are equal to kind of the prevailing rental rate that the school publishes, and you can reimburse for the apartment, so they don't have to stay on campus the whole time. But you know, this is job security for us, I think, is like, okay, we've seen this before, let's talk through, you know. And in some cases it may be legit, like, okay, it makes, from your perspective, because your philosophy on college really matters, let's not do it. But it just depends on the family.
Yeah, every situation is unique, and I think it's a great opportunity, if you're having these questions, to talk and reach out to a financial professional.
Anything you'd add, Alexa, of like nuances that you've seen over the years?
I was going to say just that, you know, finding the balance, and Lucy talked a lot about it in the webinar about, you know, saving for college versus saving for retirement. And I think it gets especially hard when you start college and those bills start coming to, you know, continue taking care of yourself and your retirement savings, you know, those 401ks, and knowing, you know, what the options are for your kids to help them, but also really continue helping yourself, because at the end of the day, you don't want to put off your retirement so your child can have the college education, and then years later your child is having to provide for you from that education. So finding the balance is hard, but it's what we work with a lot of people on, of, hey, there's lots of opportunities along the way. You don't have to have everything paid for day one. You know, you also are in charge of, you know, talking to your family about your philosophy with money, how your school journey went, what the expectations are with your kids, and then you can always change your mind, or, you know, after they're graduated, you can help with paying off student loans. It's nice sometimes that they have a buy-in, but you don't want your kids to have to completely suffer for for the school. So we do see that a lot of, like, hey, you know, they took on some of this burden and now we're on the other side. You know, the parents have a raise or a bonus. Hey, I'd like to kind of wipe this out or give a chunk over here to relieve that, not as an expectation, but as a true gift of, like, we always want to help you and not at the detriment to ourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm actually working with a family right now where we are planning to use kid three's 529 funds to pay off some student loans that kids 1 and 2 had. So they had like compartmentalized, 3 buckets for kids, and each kid came out of college with a small portion of student loan debt in relative to what it could be. And mom and dad were like, "Hey, we'll help pay the interest they can because their financial condition is quite good, but it's pretty darn expensive to have 3 kids in college and have 5 vehicles at the house and things like that." And so they wanted to kind of reserve the right to decide later. Well, kid 3 has one of those elusive, nearly full ride situations. And so there's money there. And one of the things that has eased up is you can pay student loans for yourself or siblings from the 529 funds. So again, this is just examples of kind of some of the things we see. I also sometimes there are people and it, that are like, I don't know about the benefit of college. It's very expensive. And in my case, perhaps, you're in a profession that doesn't require a college education. Um, you know, I have an opinion that is that college gives you a better statistical probability. But what do you guys think? And that's not to poo-poo that point of view. It's just like we're editorializing today and say how we really feel. So we're giving our own perspective.
Yeah, Alexa referenced a great study in the webinar that showed on average how much more you can make over your lifetime with a college education. So there really is true monetary benefit for college education. And, on the flip side of that coin, some sort of, credential, whether that be through trade school,
Absolutely.
is also definitely rising. I feel like those used to be kind of a taboo job area, but they're definitely revitalizing. So you can use a 529 for, those types of education. And don't forget about community college. It's a great place to start if you are unsure what you should major in, or knocking out some gen eds at a lower cost, or for summer classes.
Absolutely. And I think, when you look at that perspective, it's case by case. The other thing that is really important companion to the actual finances of writing the checks or taking the loans is like, hey, kiddo, college isn't like a right. It's not, like experiences that everybody deserves. This is an investment. That it's a co-investment between parent and child in the case that parents are contributing into your future success. So, of course, college is an extraordinary experience, hopefully, for many people. But this is also something where the intent is that you have the ability to earn over time, I think, in almost every case. And so it's important that you're building those life skills, you're, increasing your responsibilities and accountabilities. And I think the place where I would step back is if it was a path nowhere, where college really was, for someone with different needs, a higher cost college, but then at the end, there's not an opportunity for work that is, equivalent or higher earnings. Then you may need to have, important discussions if it's threatening the safety or financial stability of the family. So let's talk about another kind of portion. So I want to flip to from younger perspective of kind of forming a family style. We've had a past guest on the episode, by the way, Ann Garcia, who's the author of a great book on how to pay for college. We will include links to past videos, webinars, and podcasts that she's done with us in show notes. And she has some great like family philosophy worksheets, for example, and how to introduce the concepts of college to her kids. She did it with her own kids, and now she's teaching us how to do that ourselves. But when you get closer to college, kids may be earning money. You mentioned that. I don't think my son's going to have a big bank account at the end of the summer because he learned to spend money, and we're going to have to work on that savings portion. But if a kid comes in and they've really saved to pay for their portion of college, what percent are they expected to pay, and what percent of parents' assets are expected to be like considered for an expected family contribution?
So on the FAFSA, the student assets count for 20% and the parent assets count for 5.64, I think, somewhere
Around 5%, just to cover our bases.
There is a percentage there. Yeah, and the FAFSA, I think, has been through some things recently. I know
It's been through a disassembling, I think is what it's been through.
it's, the original or the previous form of 100 and some questions and very long, time consuming. They've done a revamp now. It's 36 questions. There's a way to kind of connect your tax return to the FAFSA, which in theory will make it easier. People who were around last year saw the first attempt on the revamp, and it was filled with lots of bugs and um, kind of issues just with the change. But in theory, it should be a more streamlined um, approach. And then already for this,
Someday.
they've moved the date to open up December 1st this year. Typically, it's earlier in the fall, but the hope is that it's easier for people to complete and to get that on their file. Um, Hopefully, I'm
Fingers
optimistic
crossed.
that this year will be better. And Ann Garcia does have some great blog posts about the FAFSA, and then as things change, they're making updates each year, just tweaks and that stuff. But she's a great resource because that is its own kind of animal, and just like student loans as well are a, a big topic and a big thing to tackle on the reverse side.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
FAFSA isn't limited just to those that might need student aid. We really encourage any family to fill it out, even with hopefully less of a headache than it is now than it used to be. But it's important, and it can surprise you how it might be able to help no matter what your economic situation is.
The one thing I encourage families to take with an extreme grain of salt is there are some situations where people specialize in kind of moving around your assets to get more aid. Um, Very leery about like moving assets exclusively into annuities, for example. That is kind of a annuity insurance selling wolf that's in sheep's clothing trying to help you with your kids' college finances. So be careful if you like really feel like you're behind the eight ball because you waited to save. Or perhaps you have a job interruption and you were in a income household to a one. Have a realistic conversation about what you could actually qualify for when it comes to student aid, because you may be able to qualify for a lot. I know a two income family who is like right in the middle class lane or upper middle class who has a kid with a nearly full ride to University of Michigan this year. That's because there are more generous financial aid packages in many cases, and the sticker price of college is not always the price that you're going to take home. But do be careful if it sounds too good to be true. It may be, and also it may impact your general financial condition, which is not like college is something that's a portion of your life, not all of your life. You don't want to compromise your retirement readiness because you were feeling under the gun about college.
Right. There's so many options to pay for college, and we see it in the webinar. There's a great chart that looks at all the different combinations that families on average use. It's not just, the 529. It's a combination of parents' cash flow of having kids out of the house. It frees up a little bit more cash, as well as, student loans, parents taking out some student loans, scholarships, grants, gifts from families and friends. But you need to be able to, we jokingly say, put your own oxygen mask on first and make sure that you're saving for retirement, because there's no plan B for your retirement.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk in our own words about what we're doing for college. And then I have a surprise question after. I'm going to ask you, not surprise. After that, I want us to each talk about what we did for college, because none of us came from a family of unlimited means, and we, can maybe give a little bit behind the scenes. But I want to prep people for situations where, an unlimited budget for your kid is not always the right choice. I do think, some tough knocks when it comes to adolescence can create important legacies and financial perspectives for later in life. But let's start youngest to oldest. So I'll start with you, Lucy. What have you talked with your husband Tom about when it comes to saving for college, and what have you guys have like as your initial idea or insight about what you're going to do?
So we've both been very lucky and very supported by our families. I should preface by saying my wonderful mother-in-law also is a financial planner. So
Yay!
I was pressured before we even left the hospital to have 529s open. And so we did. And we have been contributing monthly to those, and have family and friends that are also in this profession that have already contributed that we feel very blessed about. But they're by no means going to be fully funded by the time they go to college. So we've talked about, we definitely want to help them out if we're able to, and potentially take out, parent loans if we need to. But also we want our boys to have some skin in the game too. If college is something that's important to them, taking out student loans, and doing that kind of combo platter is most likely what we're going to do, even though that feels light years away.
How about you, Alexa?
I also I started my 529s very early because that's our world. Saving monthly, the Michigan 529s have a great little code you can send out to family, and hey, the 1-year-old doesn't need any more light up toys. You can get a little toy and put the rest in the 529. So it was, training grandmas and grandpas to do that, because that's a great gift for them. And for our family, I mostly I have decided that we're going with the, hey, you are going to have a bucket. It will be probably pretty equal for all 3 kids, and really having those decisions about, this bucket could fund community college for the 2 years and get you to 4 years. It could get you, a couple years at this big school, and then the other years, you can figure it out, and really giving them, the options, and of course helping them through those choices. But ultimately, don't let Patrick and Joe listen. But on the backside, I do feel it will be a situation where, hey, you've carved out your path, but once you're done with school, I can help with paying back loans or giving you a start. If they go a route that uses the 529s, it may be helping in other ways that we see fit, but not committing to a 4-year plan.
I love that. So I'll just give you, I have a 529 for each kid. That's another thing to think about, is they're really flexible to go amongst siblings. So sometimes people are like, it's just too much for me to figure out if you start at a different time period where they're each a different staggered age. Just start with one. That's fine. But I'm also fortunate. In-laws had like kind of a game plan where they give a really nice amount at birth and kindergarten and one more time. And so my kids have received some funds from grandma and grandpa that went directly, that check went right into the 529 plan in their name. And then we were really kind of felt the pressure of the cost of daycare when our kids were younger, and didn't feel like we had a ton of extra money. And I was kind of playing catch up on retirement while, just having kind of bootstrapped it in my 20s and really started accumulating money in my 30s when I was also having kids, and was buying into a partnership in my former firm. So I didn't have as much money. And so I just pulled up, actually, I can see my 529 like contributions, and we got that grandma gift in the beginning. And then sure enough, like right when kindergarten starts and the daycare goes down, I see another like that's when we started contributing. And then in my case, I didn't do like the monthly nearly as much, but I had some kind of irregular income that would come in chunks in good years for my company. And so I would do bigger contributions in those years. At least that's what I did when I was like, kind of really like in those accumulating years in your 30s. when I had a younger kid and into my 40s. And so now we have a bucket that I really feel confident is considerable. And that early gift from grandma and grandpa was really beneficial. And I would totally respect the start even with $50 a month and then increase it. That's what we're doing with a lot of clients over time. It's interesting because my kids don't love school as much, and I hope at least my older one, and I hope that changes over time. But like, I'm very much interested, and probably will have a future guest on gap years, for kind of buying some time to build life skills and or community college, so that we're using these funds over time. But I'm not assuming necessarily that it's going to be a 4-year at age 18 kind of college experience. But I still feel like it was a great decision to load up on that fund, because I did make much bigger contributions in elementary school years. So no regrets so far, because I also know that those funds can be used for other family things, and things like that. And I feel confident that we're increasing the conversations with our kids about, hey, we are when it's like, I don't love school, mom, I don't want to go to school, like, I'd rather just get done as quickly as possible. It's like, well, we have been saving for you to find the right pathway and things like that. And it changes. It's not like, when I was a kid, and maybe we can pivot to the way things were then. I was like, must go to best college and, live the dream. It's a different perspective, and that's just fine. Those are lessons of parenting. So my own lessons, I'll tell you, I'm going to the University of Michigan versus Texas game, which is, I don't know if it'll be before or after this episode comes out, but the football game. But that is, I'm going there with my dad. And my dad we lived in Kansas, but we were from Texas. And my dad was a huge University of Texas fan. He would have loved to go to school there, but his parents had never gone to college. His dad was a lawnmower, and his mom worked at the Levi's factory. And so he really wanted me to go to University of Texas, which I got admitted to and was pre-accepted into the business honors program. And I just wanted to go wherever my parents said not to. I was ready to leave the nest and not stay in Kansas either. And I went to University of Michigan. So along the way, my dad did pay for a portion. My mom was a single mom, and she actually took some loans out to help me too. And I worked throughout college and before. And I didn't write tuition checks, but I paid for most of my spending money. And when I left school, I had loans. It wasn't the most, my dad was disappointed that I went to school at an out-of-state school that was more expensive. And I learned a lot of lessons about independence. And I don't know if I made the perfect choice. It was the perfect choice for where I've landed today, but a lot of bumps along the way. But I think some of those lessons of limitations, or, not just getting a blank check for school, were actually quite good. And I know parents today feel less than sometimes when they can't write the full checks, or they may be willing to put themselves into Parent Plus loans that are like astronomical. And I just don't want you to feel like you're paying off student loans while you also are retiring at your, whether it's your perfect retirement date, or because you need to because of a job change, or your body just can't take it anymore. So that was a big, that's a lot of information, but that's me. What about you guys? Alexa, what did you do? How did you put yourself through school, and how did your parents help?
Yeah, so I am the middle of five, so there's a lot of expenses on a lot of schools. So we did have a little bit of college savings, but a lot of it we were kind of on our own, especially as a child who graduated in 2008. Um,
Yeah.
really, a lesson I learned is those age-based funds with the 529 plans are a great tool, because when you do go through those time periods and you're ready to start college, it would be really nice if the funds you saved would be there. So that's one thing.
There is no, I know in the money is less in a 529 account typically than the parent's retirement plan, but there is nothing that makes a parent saver more upset than a 529 fund that used to be 50,000, now it's 30,000 the year that they're going to school. That is just very emotional, very difficult conversation. So getting more conservative can feel like you're missing out on something, but the age-based funds have something, have a thing or two going on there.
Yeah, there was a reason behind that, and I think I was part of that. or our age group was. But I took all the AP classes. We had a dual enrollment program with the local college, so I took part in those. And then my technical freshman year, I went part time in um, Minnesota to a community college and played junior hockey for a year. So it was a different route. And then transferred to South Dakota State as a sophomore and did the rest of my college years there. Um, did not take any loans. I worked basically full time during college and then a lot in the summers. So it was kind of crazy. And I think the other thing I would really probably focus on if I could do it again is, focusing on scholarships and ways to, you know, making $14 an hour if you get $1,000 scholarship, like the time of getting back that time and, maybe enjoying the experience a little more than working all the time.
And how about you, Lucy?
I am the youngest of three, and there's a bit of an age gap between all of us. So I was lucky in the sense that my parents were a bit older and a bit more in their higher earning years when I went to school. So they financially helped out a lot, as well as my grandpa paid for 2 years. I did have some student loans, and I worked in the summertime to help pay those down. And my mom and dad both helped to pay off some of those student loans on the backside of college. So it actually helped to build up my credit. And when I went to go buy my first home very young, I had a great credit score, which I didn't realize because of that student loan. So thanks, Mom. But yeah, it was a great time, 4 years at Sweetbriar College, which is a small all women's liberal arts school in Virginia. And we kind of did the general mix of everything. And that worked out well for me. And I hope that I can do something similar for my kids, because it was nice to not have a ton of pressure during the school year. I could just focus on being a student, enjoying that experience, and being on sports teams, which I loved.
I love that too. I think that if I were leaving with a lesson for everyone, it's incrementalism. Don't look at that big number and think, oh my gosh, just like, let's not even talk about it because it's not happening this month. $50 a month now, a reminder to family like, hey, it's nice that there's if you celebrate Christmas, the Christmas tree is filled with gifts, but if you wrote a check and just like cut the price in half of all the things under the tree, that would be nice. And just having discussions both with your co-decision makers, co-parents, partners, etc., and or your kids as they get older. To regardless of your circumstances, there are pathways. And we just thank you for listening to both the technical side, which again, listen to the webinar for more technical details on financial savings, but also our personal experiences that we instill into the advice that we give one-on-one with people. If you enjoyed the episode, please like, subscribe, leave us a review, and we're always available to hear future episodes that you'd love to hear about. So if you have ideas of what you want to hear, please let us know. Have a great day. Thank you for listening to the Women's Money Wisdom Podcast. If you found value in this episode, the best way you can support the podcast is to forward an episode to a friend or leave a review. Go to pearlplan.com and the podcast link to get all the resources and links mentioned.